decide to apply to live at Denver's first tiny home village?
Okay, my name is Jemiah Rawls, and I decided to. Actually, I was at the St. Francis Center, and somebody came up to me and they gave me a flyer to saying that the tiny village was going to be built soon for homeless people. And so I said, oh, this will be real cool to get out of the crowded shelters that we're always in. And so I went and inquired at DHOG, the Denver Homeless Out Loud, and I inquired to them, and they told me that there'll be interviews on Saturday, that following Saturday. So I went down, and the interview went well. They chose me, and now I'm one of the Tiny Village members.
What aspects of the village intrigued you, other than obviously getting out of a shelter, but what about the village really made you want to join it?
Well, to be honest, having my own space, okay, and then having multicultural, people, all kinds of people here, and I didn't want to live in a segregated neighborhood. I want to live somewhere where there's diversity, and I've always been a fan of tiny homes. They're cute, and they're cozy, you know what I mean? And it's not, people say it's a shack, it's a room, but I call it a home. Okay, because you can put anything you can put in a home, you can put in there, but you can't, you have to accommodate it a certain way. Yeah.
How will your life be different when you're living in this tiny home?
Safer. My life will be busy, a little different from safety, as far as safety. You live in a village, so it's a little different than having your friends live 2-3 blocks down. You live right next door to each other. It's really a close-knit community. You have to govern yourself. I've always been involved in the community, so it's one of those things that if you want to get in it, it's about you governing yourselves with the rest of the tiny village members.
What are your thoughts on the criminalization of people who do live on the streets and choose not to go into shelter?
It's very disappointing that we have to depend on legislators who will pass legislation to criminalize people for being in the street. It is crazy. It is something that I never really even dreamed about happening in this country, this free country, where people can be locked up, their blankets taken off of them by those who are put in positions of authority to protect people. So it's pulling their sheets off of them while they're sleeping. It's not cool, man. That's not cool. And I'm not trying to make a mockery at law enforcement. I'm just trying to speak the truth here, It's not cool. What is going on in the world today that our government would pass legislation to say, okay, well, you're sleeping in that park there, I'm going to give you a ticket. And you can't even buy food. You can't even buy groceries. So how am I going to pay a fine for sleeping in the park? You know what I mean? If I'm sleeping in the park, it's because I don't have a roof over my head, I don't have anywhere else to sleep. Because if I had somewhere else to sleep, I'd go somewhere else to sleep. You know what I mean? And then if I wanted to sleep in the park, I should be able to sleep in the park. That's what parks really are for you to rest and chill out and relax. And when I do that, I fall asleep. I don't know about you, but I fall asleep. Every time I'm relaxing, I'm falling asleep. And then to be tapped on your shoulders by somebody in a uniform or somebody that's patrolling the area and tapping you on the shoulders and waking you up is one thing. But giving you a ticket and being unfriendly to you and unneighborly to you for no reason, but other than you got to get out of the park, that's really wrong. That's wrong. I think our legislators really need to take a good hard look at, their abilities to help out society, to help society, not stomp us all, step on all of us, to help us.
What would you say to them and Mayor Hancock about this type of alternative housing rather than giving more money into shelter systems and things like that? Would you advocate for many more of these villages?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would definitely advocate for many more villages because the villages it's as you know, it's not a quick fix because you have to go through a lot of different steps to even come to this point and starting to build. But excuse me, once you get to that point, you really feel like that you're making a difference in the lives of the people that are going to be living here. And I would say to them that if there's any kind of way of funding this, or is there any kind of way that you can help out, because not only are the people, the sponsors and the volunteers, D-Hall and the villagers are going to benefit, you're going to benefit too, because people overall see that you're trying to put an end to the overcrowded shelters and the homeless situation in Denver. You need to put the hope back into the system. The people depend on you. Please do that. Do that for the people who put you in office.
My name is Karen Seed. I've been working on this tiny home project for about 3.5 years. So almost 2 years ago now, our group, Denver Homeless Out Loud, was responsible for a village that was sort of the precursor to what we're seeing today. What happened was we had been advocating for Tiny Home Village as a innovative and attainable solution to the housing crisis for, at that point, they had been working on it for 3 or so years. And the conversations with the city and the landowner, the city entities like the Denver Housing Authority, had reached a brick wall. No one in the city would talk to us, no one in the Housing Authority would talk to us, and instead they were super focused on criminalizing homelessness and increasing the enforcement of their camping ban, as well as selling off all of the inner city public housing land in order to make money, basically, and supposedly build public housing somewhere else, but it wasn't happening. So we had been in conversation with the Housing Authority about Sustainability Park for almost a year at that point. And Sustainability Park was a place in downtown Denver, which at one point had been public housing. It had been projects, right? But in 1999, the Housing Authority decided to tear down the projects, supposedly to redevelop them into mixed income, mixed use buildings that were more healthy communities, right? But they didn't rebuild affordable housing. They let that land sit there for 10 years empty. In 2009, they brought in urban farms to use the land for something because they didn't have money to build due to the mortgage crisis of 2008. So they had these urban farms going on the land. But then gentrification started happening in that neighborhood. The area all around this previously blighted public housing land is now gaining in value and becoming extremely popular, while the land is still sitting there. Now, they had said they were going to build affordable housing there, but in 2015, the Housing Authority decided to switch its course and sell the land to a private developer for market rate homes for $10 million. And some of those condos were expected to sell for $500,000. So it was the exact opposite of affordable housing at a time when Denver is experiencing its most severe housing crisis. So we decided to show, not only expose the fact that that land was getting sold, but to show the city of Denver what a tiny house village might actually look like. We went onto the land during a volunteer day for the farm, and we built 5 homes. So our people were going to move into that village that night. Instead, by the end of the night, we were surrounded by police officers. There was probably about 70 cops in about 40 or 50 cars. There was at least 2 SWAT units that I saw, and there was a helicopter overhead. So we were on lockdown, and all of us were charged with trespassing and thrown in jail overnight. And in a sense, it was a big defeat because the homes were taken away from us and destroyed, and we didn't even get to spend one night in them. So a lot of the people who are in the business of housing criticize us very heavily for that action because we didn't play by the rules. However, 2 years later, it becomes clear that what we did was monumental because it moved the conversation forward at a time when it had stagnated, and it forced the city officials to be accountable to their actions in the public trust. So I think it's very clear now we're building a legal tiny home village, that it was an action that advanced the cause, and I'm really grateful for that. The biggest thing in these 4 years that we've been trying to build this village has been land. We still don't have our own land to put the villages on. And in a city like Denver, where real estate is rapidly increasing in value, the question of where to build it has been paramount, pretty much. So the first piece was to get a partner who had land. And that came when the Urban Land Conservancy, some of our associates and friends, they own this land that we're sitting on today. And what they do is they preserve and build affordable housing. So they acquired this land, and eventually they're going to be building a 16-story all affordable housing complex on here. But until the time that they get the funding and the permits to do that, it's just sitting, right? So they reached out to us and invited us to be here, which was critical. After that, we had to get our zoning permits from the City of Denver and our building permits from the City of Denver. This is a historic day, and what we're building here is just 11 homes, but the community support behind this, coming from everywhere, from the contractor who stepped in pro bono, the lawyers who stepped in, like all the landowners, all of the partners have uplifted us and shown us just what is possible. And our hope is to show that this is a model that works and not only is like affordable but human and dignified. And in the future, we hope to integrate more of these little villages into the fabric of neighborhoods across the city.